we're getting an offensive line, so that's where it all starts. And if we can hold on to some of our receivers, get a new running back, I think we'll be pretty good. I don't know. I still think they probably need to go for some secondary defense. I mean, it'd be great if we can score points, but you also have to stop the other team. So I'd like to see. I think we lost a cornerback, so I'd like to see at least another free safety and a defensive back. Yeah, yeah. So the book is entitled The Anxious Generation. It's written by a social psychologist. I think the book was published somewhere around 18 months ago. And right now, a lot of people in our field are kind of eating through the material. And, to save your readers about 380 pages, the basic synopsis is this, is that not necessarily cell phones, but social media is having a negative impact, and we can look at that with empirical data to say that it is eroding their mental wellness. And so it's not exactly the phone, it's the social media of it, as well as we seem to continue to be pushing an educational system where it makes our young people, we're trying to get so much program into their education that it doesn't allow for a lot of imaginative play, a lot of recess time. And the author is arguing that it's in those unstructured times that our youth are putting together their social constructs of how to navigate conflict, how to deal with hierarchy of power, what are appropriate roles and responsibilities of different demographics. No, I think you're right on the money there, Seth. I've heard this conversation for the last several years of what are we doing with these cell phones? Because one, the negative input, but secondly, is it is a distraction to the educator trying to relay the information and make sure it's assimilated. So as you talked about, I know Indiana just passed a state law that bans cell phone usage. I believe Virginia is one, Texas is another one that's looking at it. Illinois, as you mentioned, it's going through the General Assembly right now of do we do a statewide ban or do we give the districts the power, the authority to make those put in place? I've seen everything from a total ban to certain allocated times, like free time, like a homeroom or a lunch period or recess that you can have them. I've seen these things called yonder bags, which basically you put your phone in a bag and it has a lock to it that you can only unlock during certain times, so you're not fiddling with it in the middle of class. All of that to be said is, yes, I also speak at this as a parent, and my first gut reaction was like, well, what happens if I need to get a hold of my kids? The cell phone was a nice tether, but we have to remember that prior to 1990s, like we had this thing called a corded phone that you could call the school and the school could page out. And if we entrust our administrators and our educators to physically look after them from the time of 8 to 3, we should be able to trust them to be able to make a phone call if we need to get a hold of them. So yeah, I agree. I think personally, when I look at the data and when I think about what I'm seeing locally, yeah, I think that a cell phone during in-service programming makes total sense. Wow. Well, we don't have time to get into all of it, so I'll just hit the highlights of it. One is that, I've talked here before, is that the very front part of our brain is the last part of our brain to develop. It's called the prefrontal cortex. It's in control of our executive functioning. And really, some of the last stuff for our brains to develop are impulsivity, moral reasoning, ethics, emotional regulation. So that sounds basically like a regular teenager. We're impulsive, we're happy, we're sad, we're angry, and we don't really think through the consequences of things. The internet, which I thought was interesting in this book, they said that, there are natural identifiers of when we grow up. So, you can't watch a PG-13 movie until you're 13. You can't drive until you're 16. You can't smoke until you're 21. You can't vote until you're 18. But when we get online, everybody's the same age immediately. And so there's no regulation. So we have all of this oversight and, we just think about the playgrounds. Like, back when you and I were kids, like you probably had the metal slide that was 500 degrees Fahrenheit during the spring. And you had monkey bars made out of metal that, if you fell off of them, gravel caught you. Or now we've got synthetic rubber chips and everything's made out of plastic and all of these rules and regulations for play. But we have nothing for social media. It's just the wild, wild west. And so why wouldn't we put things in place that not necessarily restrict, but protect our youth from themselves or from other predators, quite frankly. So I think we know that there is a brain chemical called dopamine that's released whenever we have a feel-good principle. This dopamine is something that basically says that was pleasurable, I want it again. And I know people that are neuropsychologists are probably smacking their forehead saying that's not all it is, but in layman's terms, dopamine is that I'm trying to return back to that pleasurable thing. So that's firing like crazy. And that's why we're checking our cell phones on average around 400 times a day. That's why we're checking social media. Did we get a like? And I think that so it's impacting our neural development. Bullying before, like if you were going to bully me, Seth, you would bully me in school, but I always knew that home was a safe place. Well, now, just thanks to social media, you can come right into my bedroom when I click onto social media and you can bully me. I think that the damaging effects of our sense of self. I'm always comparing myself to your highlights. And I need to be the best version of you, not me. I think that this idea of moral reasoning, it's many things in social media that are accessible to our young people, and they don't have the capacity either emotionally, mentally, or even sometimes socially to hold everything that social media is offering. Absolutely. Yeah, you can get on some social media township pages and see people just behave completely ignorant. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, as I think about my parenting, when it starts out, I'm telling my kids what to do. I'm instructing them, I'm leading them, I'm guiding them, with my words and with my, quite frankly, my rules and my restrictions. When they become a teenager where they're at right now, um, I'm more of a player coach. Like they are making a lot of their decisions socially, emotionally, their activities. And then once they get out of the house, then my job switches to I'm kind of their tailwind. I'm encouraging, I'm supporting, I'm nurturing. Um, but at this age right now, it doesn't really matter what I say, it matters what I do and how I carry myself. And the old saying is more at this age, more is caught, which is social modeling, than taught. So yeah, to your point, if my character does not align with my command, it's irrelevant. Well, one, I would say they're not rational. Again, they're impulsive and they're emotionally unregulated. So we have to be able to meet our young people where they're at with the material in a manner that they can digest. The book says no cell phones at all until the age of 13, no social media until at least 16, which I don't think is necessarily a bad rule. Um, when you will take your kids out driving, my oldest son just got his driver's license, so please be careful when you come to Monticello. But I don't know if you're aware of this, Seth. You have to do 50 hours, 50 in the car with your young person before they're even eligible to get their driver's license. We're not spending any time with our kids when we just hand them a phone and we're like, enjoy TikTok, enjoy social media. Like, I really think that we need to be doing some in the co-pilot seat of, I'm going to walk you through some education on healthy cybersecurity, social media conduct. I'm going to tell you some of the dangers of it. And then, quite frankly, as I tell my kids, that's my cell phone. I'm just allowing you to use it. So I have access to that cell phone. Every password will be the same. And again, uh, there's monitoring devices that parents are aware of that you can put on there, like a Guardian or something like that. But again, we are handing our young people a tool that could be wonderful, but it's also very, very dangerous. And we're not giving them the proper instructions. Sounds great. Thank you. Yeah, so we're very proud of a program that was launched several years ago in Piatt, and then we're actually coming up on, golly, I think maybe our second, third year in DeWitt County. ROSC is an acronym for Recovery Oriented System of Care. And essentially, it is a state grant from the Department of Human Services that tasks organizations with building a support network for individuals that are going through the process of a substance use disorder, whether or not that's early intervention, active addiction, or in any throes of recovery. So the concept is, what can we do to put together a supportive system of care that will help rally people towards sobriety? Yeah, so I think the best part about ROSC is a couple of their guiding principles. One is that there are many different pathways to recovery. So some guys are and gals are sold out to 12 steps. That got them sober. Some people are saying abstinence is the only way. Other people said it's faith-based. Some people subscribe to medicated assisted recovery services such as Suboxone or methadone. But ROSC really believes like whatever works for you works for you, and I think that is good. It takes some people a little bit harder time to come around it. So, for example, like if you were actively injecting heroin and you were you had an opioid use disorder, but now you're only smoking marijuana. That system of thought would be like you're on your way to recovery because you're using a less harsh illicit substance. Same thing if you're drinking a case of beer and you're down to a six-pack. Well, some people would say, unless you are completely abstinent, you're not in recovery. And this ROSC model disagrees with it, which I think is good. The other one is that for too many times in our recovery community, we have had people at the table that have all these wonderful initials behind their names or these beautiful titles, talking about how those people can get help. And the reality is that we need to have the voices of people in recovery leading that discussion, saying this is what helps us. And instead of coming from a model of you're addicted to what substance and how long have you been out and how many different needs do you have, we are strength focused. Do you have a support community? Do you have stable employment? What are some of your guiding principles to maintaining sobriety? And it's really strength focused. So we're working with individuals coming out of treatment, trying to keep them in sober activities, trying to figure out how to deflect them from law enforcement, which I know that I believe the chief was in there talking about the DART program recently, which is a great initiative. We're trying to get up as many naloxone boxes in DeWitt and Piatt County because we believe that access to life-saving naloxone is important because we can't talk to dead people about recovery. Like we can talk about harm reduction after we save their life. There are a lot of opportunities for housing because that's a big thing. And transportation probably is one of the biggest things. Transportation to and from treatment is a huge, huge need in both counties. Yes, sir. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it's pretty easy. Either get on Facebook and just type in DeWitt ROSC or Piatt ROSC, or check us out online, piattmhc.org. We have a website dedicated with all the contact information. We have a coordinator for DeWitt and we have a coordinator for Piatt. Both ladies are doing amazing work. Both have lived experience and have a plethora of resources at their fingertips.